Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Talking Shit. And I am your host, America's favorite uncle, Jay Shuffleboson. Today, I want to tell you guys about a very detailed shit story. It's about a couple of colleagues that started a prank war with each other, gone horribly wrong. So let me take you back, probably 20 years ago. I was with this jousting group, and we performed at Renaissance festivals and stuff like that. And we were at the largest Renaissance festival on the West Coast in Northern California. It is 4 nights, 1 MC, bunch of squires, in front of thousands of people. And it's a big, freaking, big event, big deal. So we have Sir Patrick the Black Knight. I made a couple videos about him. He went from living in his van with a mountain lion to living in a tour bus that he got from somewhere. I'll go into how he got that bus quickly, real quick. So Pat, he met up with an amazing gal in the Toronto area named I'm not gonna mention her name because God, she's a saint. She owned a couple of massage businesses in the Toronto area and took to Pat like a stray dog and just wanted to rescue him. And she ended up selling her businesses. I could be wrong in this, but this is how I remember it so long ago. She sold her company, and Pat said, "We should get a bus." And they found this big motor coach, diesel pusher tour bus from, I don't know if it's from a band or what, but it was pretty nice. So, Pat shows up in this bus with his lady friend, and Pat got into some kind of a prank. He did something to Cliff, who was the white knight in our show. I don't know what the fuck started this whole thing, but it just kind of escalated and got more and more involved and detailed, and everybody else just kind of backed out of it and just kind of like, oh, you guys are fucking with each other, whatever. And it got to a level that I never thought would happen. And nobody else in the group imagined that this would happen. Cliff took a shit in a plastic grocery bag. And he took that bag of shit and he climbed up on top of Pat's bus when he was out of town for a couple weeks. He had some other obligations and stuff, and so we had another night fill in, I believe. That's how it was. But he was gone for like a week or two. Cliff took this bag of shit, tied it into a knot, and he climbed up on Pat's bus and he put it up against the air intake vent to his air conditioning unit on his bus. And it sat there and baked in the hot Gilroy sun for like 2 weeks. And everybody was like, what the fuck? But nobody went up there to get the shit down. Cliff wasn't going to do it. He's kind of pissed at Pat. So Pat shows up and turned on his AC, and it fumigated his bus. And Pat was kind of pissed. Cliff he left and then came back, and it was like the day of the show. Pat comes up to me and he says, "Jay, I understand that Cliff put a bag of shit on top of my bus at the AEC unit." And I said, "Pat, I'm not involved in this. I had nothing to do with it. Keep me the fuck out of it. This is between you guys. Just make sure that his helmet is on his weapons rack during the Queen show. Pat, I'm not squiring for him. Keep me the fuck out of this. Leave me alone. Go fuck yourself." So the Queen show was like the big show where the Queen of England shows up, and it's like big entourage and like fucking thousands of people are there and stuff. And here's how our show worked. Like, our jousting was full contact. None of that was like scripted. We used solid pine lances with a 1-inch copper cap at the end. And if you got knocked off, you got knocked off. But what was choreographed in our show was the sword fights. And each of us worked really hard to create a good sword fight with each other and stuff to close the show out, and we'd go in rotation and stuff like that. So anyway, so during this Queen show in the middle of summer, it's fucking hot out there, and the end was supposed to be Cliff versus Patrick sword fighting at the end, but they also had the joust. So the first round of jousting was Quint versus Steve, and they did like 4 or 5 passes. And then the next round was Cliff versus Patrick. And as I'm getting gear off of my brother Steve, I'm looking over at Cliff, and his squire took the helmet off the rack, handed it up to him. Cliff put it on. And I'm thinking, what the fuck did Pat mean by make sure his helmet is on the weapons rack, you know? And I'm like, fucking Pat did something to that helmet. I didn't figure it out at that time. So anyway, they got to the ends of the field, gathered their lances, and they charged at each other. They did one pass, and it wasn't even a good hit by either guy. And at that point, like before Cliff even reached the end of the field, he ditched his lance, he threw it, took his helmet off, and he leans over his horse and he starts just puking, just heaving. Gets off his horse, and he yells at his squire, "Sword!" And his squire came running over with the sword, and I'm sitting there thinking, oh, fuck. And they were supposed to do like a few passes. It's a jousting show. They just barely clipped each other in that pass. So Cliff grabbed his sword, Pat hopped off of his horse, grabbed his sword, and they went from one end of the field to the other. They were running towards each other. And they swung. Now, I've been doing this shit for a long fucking time. And I've seen some amazing choreographed sword fights on stage, at the festivals, in theater, in the movies. I could name off a couple right now. Like a lot of people don't really like this movie, but it's great for the sword fight at the end with the sheriff and Robin Hood, Kevin Costner, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. They're throwing shit at each other from the room and stuff. It's a very intense fight. I loved it. Rob Roy, Liam Neeson versus was it Tim Roth? That was an amazing sword fight. And Game of Thrones, Ned Stark versus the Sword of the Morning. Sir Arthur Dane with the what's his name that ended up stabbing him in the back, and the dual sword. There's so many awesome sword fights. Errol Flynn, like I could just go on and on, but this sword fight between Patrick and Cliff won a gold medal to me. They were swinging. They did the choreographed moves. Don't get me wrong, but they're swinging as hard as they fucking could, snarling at each other. Sparks were flying. Crowds going fucking nuts. And the sword fight ends, and immediately Cliff storms off the field. He doesn't even do the meet and greet at the end. And I could hear him heaving behind the castle and stuff. And then once things quieted down at the end of the show, we go in the back, and we had to separate Cliff and Patrick from like going to blows. So what happened was Patrick took the bag of shit that Cliff left on his bus, and he took that bag of shit and he smeared the shit all inside Cliff's helmet. So it was the baked feces, and Cliff got nauseated like immediately and started like heaving in his helmet. And so yeah, that's a very, very disgusting and detailed and hopefully entertaining shit story. I hope you enjoyed it in this episode of Talking Shit with me, Jay Shuffleboson, America's uncle. Guys, I really appreciate the support you guys have given me in the last week. I've never imagined that that my YouTube channel would take off. If you like it, if you're new, click like, click subscribe, because I'm just getting started with these fucking stories. I have tons of them. Tons of them. And I hope you enjoyed it. This was a lot of fun retelling this. I need to reach out to Cliff and find out what started the whole thing to begin with. So anyways, yeah, my subscriber count has blown through the roof. We fucking did it, guys. Thank you very much. High fives and boners. And yeah, fuck yeah. I got a lot more stories to tell, so stick around.